Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Hennis?
Present.
Mrs. Dolezal?
Present.
Mr. Wright?
Here.
Mr. Lopez?
Present.
And Ms. Hawkins?
Here. Okay. You'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for 30 minutes. Follow the silence. Along. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2. Move to adopt the agenda of October 1st, 2019 as presented.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Hennis?
Aye.
Ms. Dolezal?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Ms. Hawkins?
Yes. Item B, minutes from prior meetings. Move to approve the minutes of September 3rd and 11th, 2019 as presented.
So moved.
Discussion?
Mr. Hennis?
Aye.
Mrs. Dolezal?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Ms. Hawkins?
Yes. Okay, number 3, recognitions. This is where we get to recognize the students of the month. Starting with the Rotary students, we'll have Principal McNabb and then Principal Cole.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Governing Board, Superintendent, Dr. Beebe. It's my pleasure to be with you today and to recognize one of our students from Union. I'd like to invite up Maria Mackler, so you can see her wonderful face. Shades of red as we proceed to embarrass her with all the great things that she's doing. So let me tell you, there's quite a lengthy list. She's a very humble young lady, so we pulled this out from a lot of other people. But one of the things that I had to ask her before we started was who was her hero today? And it was a fight between mom and dad, but I think mom won out for right now. We would like to recognize them. They're in the audience, both Norma Mackler and Paul Mackler. We appreciate them sharing their daughter with us. So Maria has been involved in a ton of clubs. Just to name a few are our drama club, theater, Student Council, Key Club, World Travel Club, Anti-Defamation League, Superintendent's Advisory Council, Cougar Ambassador, National Honor Society, and I'm sure there's some I've probably missed. What's more incredible is that each of these clubs, she's often been a leader involved in there, ranging from secretary, historian, vice president, ambassador, president. Most recently, not a big issue, but she's our student body president as well. Okay, it is a big issue. She has also won several awards and ongoing academic achievement awards, high GPAs. She's an AP scholar. So she's doing all this and she's maintaining high standards for herself. Outside of school, she's also part of Junior Catholic Daughters of the Americas, does altar server, and has attended Girls State, where part of that she was awarded Most Important Party Member, which is pretty cool, actually. Wow. Some of her life goals and career goals, she has a passion for international relations, humanities, journalism, photojournalism, global business, political science. There's probably a lot more. Those are the ones that fit on the page. She wants to attend NAU, but what the neat part is she's a very pragmatic lady. She said, or the best offer. So one of her dads said, no, something better might come along this way. And she's hoping to major in international relations, minor in psychology, law, or political science. As you can tell, she's a very directed young lady, and we are excited to have her, and certainly would like to congratulate her.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. You bet. Great work.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. At this time, I'd like to recognize Maddie Bradford. Maddie is the daughter of Christina Sansness and Darren Bradford. I'd like to recognize you here tonight. Maddie is a former BGHS DECA chapter president, and she's a current Arizona DECA state officer. She's CTE Student of the Month. She's also placed first in hospitality and tourism district competition. She's first place state chapter winner for entrepreneurship event called Ideas to Doors. Her team won $500 for the Vista Grande DECA chapter. I'm expecting that we'll probably be seeing her up here later for CTE issues. Some of her accomplishments include that you are currently the state vice president for the Arizona DECA. She is project manager for a community service event with Against Abuse here in Casa Grande, which many of us are familiar with, the great work that they do there. So we're proud of you for participating in that, Maddie. She has completed, this is another thing that makes us very happy that we're trying to go toward, is Maddie has completed dual enrollment classes through Central Arizona College and Mesa Community College. And her life and career goals include finish remaining classes at Mesa Community, then transfer to ASU's W.P. Carey School of Business for a degree in hospitality. And her plans are to use this degree to pursue a career in hotel and restaurant management.
That's awesome.
Mr. Sipes, which presents the CTE student.
President Hawkins, honorable board members, Dr. Beebe, I'm honored this evening to recognize Austin Sims as September's Career and Technical Education Student of the Month. Austin was nominated by his technical theater teacher, Mrs. Kathy Harding, who's here with us this evening. Ms. Harding stated, Austin has done much to distinguish himself from his peers. As a quiet student who transferred into our program with some construction and welding experience, he has evolved into a self-starting student who searches for knowledge relating to technical theater beyond his experience level. He has become a true leader who is highly respected by his peers for his knowledge and leadership. His professionalism and perfectionism have helped make significant strides in the elevation of Vista Grande's theater company values. Not only has he worked tirelessly to support all the various productions and events the past 2 school years, he also played an integral part in the technical preparation of our most challenging production to date, Mamma Mia. He has quickly become our go-to student for technical theater. He is always willing to give assistance, and I'm proud to see him growing and leading our organization. Austin, congratulations. Austin's parents, Brett and Wendy Collar, are here with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Item B, under recognitions, is now we have the employees of the month. Beebe?
Yeah. President Hawkins, members of the governing board, it's always my pleasure to get to recognize our employees. And Mary Ann Amerson, who normally helps me, is not with us this week, so Stacy Howell is going to help me with all of that. So, I'll tell you what. You want to read and I'll write? We'll make it work.
Make it work, okay.
Okay.
Alicia Denson.
There we go. Now I can see him. Congratulations.
George Courtney. John Maraldi.
Thank you, sir.
Robert Pierce. Kiana Peck. Jackie Stillwell. Gina Vasquez Garza. Christina Ogle. Lisa Miller.
If we don't have anybody that, there's no pink cards, no calling the public, we go on to number 5, reports and presentations. Dr. Beebe.
Hi, President Hodges, member of the governing board. It is always my pleasure to brag a little bit about all the things going on in our district for the last month. So I'll start going back to September 4th. Congratulations to the seniors and their families of the Vista Grande cross-country teams who celebrated their senior night on September 4th, and that was also their only home meet of the year and a little bit warm. So congratulations to all of them. Also, fall sports are underway, and not only underway, they're well into the season. So I would just like to personally wish the football, volleyball, cross-country, golf, and swim teams at both schools the very best of luck this season. And it's been very productive so far. Moving on. Congratulations to the students, faculty, and staff of both Vista Grande and Casa Grande Union, who both had their homecomings this month, in the month of September, and both went off without a hitch and with a lot of good times. And also special congratulations to Tito Nunez Rivera and Adriana Guerrera of Vista Grande, as well as Damian Allen and Rosario Garcia of Casa Grande Union, who were the 2019 homecoming kings and queens of their school. So always a good time in high school to go to homecoming. Congratulations to the newly inducted members of the National Honor Society at CG Union. And then a big thank you to the U of A, who hosted both the Casa Grande Union biotech and STEM students on September 6th. Those students got a chance to go down to U of A and they visited the engineering lab, the breast cancer research lab, and the neuroscience lab. So what a great experience for kids to go down and see some of those things.
Say go Cats.
You can. On September 20th, we had our full day of professional development here in the district, and it was an absolute amazing day of learning. And I want to just publicly thank everyone who was involved in the planning of that day, as well as the teachers, the classified staff, and administrators who were our presenters. We really got a chance in a day to learn from our own. And in my experience, sometimes that's some of the very best professional development you can be involved in. And we have so many talented people who work in our district, so it was a great day. On September 20th, the Vista Grande Marching Band hosted the middle school band students from Zacatone and Palago to perform with them at halftime, and that's always a neat experience when our middle schoolers get to come over to the high school and experience what high school is going to be like. I want to say a big thank you to Herb Jones, who's now our graduation company, for helping both schools to launch their Believe in You campaigns, where students publicly commit to graduating on time. They get a chance to sign their banner, and the campaigns of both schools have been very powerful and very successful, so thank you to them. A big congratulations. I sent out a tweet earlier in the month, but I want to congratulate our AP Spanish Literature students at Vista Grande. Those students right now are working on getting their minor in Spanish even before they graduate from high school. So that's an amazing accomplishment for them and something that will suit them well as they move on beyond high school. Congratulations to Vista Grande's Andrea Guerrero, who was recognized as the Pinal Prep Performer of the Week last week. And then finally, a big congratulations to the Casa Grande Union Pride of Casa Grande Marching Band, who finished first place at the Millennium High School marching competition this last weekend, and they also won awards for outstanding percussion and outstanding visual effects. So anyway, it's been a great month of September, and thank you for letting me share what's happened with the board.
Thank you. All right, number 6, matters reserved for board action. Number A under that is ASPA policy revisions. And move to approve and adopt the second reading of the revisions of ASPA policies as presented.
Second.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
Mr. Hennis.
Aye.
Mrs. Dolzall. And Mr. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Lopez.
Yes.
And Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. Item B, Vista Grande fencing project. Move to approve a bid not to exceed $25,000 for the Vista Grande High School fencing project.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion?
The discussion was, these are for two pieces, right, with not to exceed. There was, I think we saw last month that there were 2 individual,
Right.
and the total was not to exceed 25,000, right, for the total fencing?
Correct. So what happened is we have two areas that still need to be fenced off to protect the fields when students are out on them during the school day. One is over off of the basically on the east side of the school over by the back of the parking lot, a set of fencing that would run there. And then the other one then is on the kind of the south and west side where the student lot is, to keep people from coming out of the student lot out onto the fields. We have been able to get one bid, and so we know what that's the not to exceed amount. We're looking at getting at least 2 other bids. Obviously, those bids would have to come in lower, or else we would go with the better bid. But the reason I'm bringing it to you now this way, I'd really like to get that fencing in place as soon as possible, and I didn't want to have to wait all the way until November to bring it back for your approval.
That's good. Call for the questions.
Mr. Hennis.
Aye.
Mrs. Dolzall.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Lopez.
Yes.
And Ms. Hawkins.
Yes. Item C, graduation alliance services agreement. And we're going to have discussion and consideration of the dropout prevention and recovery agreement with Graduation Alliance as presented. And I believe Dr. Beebe or
Once you've made a motion.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
move that we approve the graduation line proposal.
Second?
Second.
Okay, now discussion.
Well, members of the governing board, as promised, I have asked Chuck Worshiper and Greg Harper here. I'm going to let them come up. And as I promised, I wanted to let them give you a little first hand of this agreement, this program, how it could work to benefit the school as our alternative program, and give you, the board, a chance to ask them the questions you might have that I could not answer for you. So, come on.
And how it'll benefit kids, right?
And how it will benefit kids, yeah.
Evening, Madam President, members of the board, superintendent, appreciate your time. I'm Greg Harp, I'm the Chief Development Officer nationally for Graduation Alliance. So let me give a little background about Graduation Alliance and then specifically about the program we would introduce with you. So Graduation Alliance is an organization that's been around about 12 years. with one singular goal, and that is to help put a dent in and solve the dropout issue in America, which is 31 million people, over 615,000 just here in Arizona, which is 14% of the Arizona population lives life without a high school diploma, which in our view is a travesty. And so we work very hard from a policy perspective, working with school districts, workforce boards, states. We have state contracts in Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Colorado, and Texas to help solve these types of problems, as well as hundreds and hundreds of districts around the country. And so how do we do that? Number one, we're accredited by Advanced Ed, so we could go become a charter school, we could go become a lot of things to try to help solve this problem. However, we don't feel like that's the best way to solve the issue. We believe the right way to solve the issue is by helping districts address the issue. So what do? So the first part is that we bring in a tremendous amount of resources to help find students who can't or won't go to school. It's very important. You're going to hear me reference that a couple of times. Can't or won't go to school. That is who we're focused on. Not, in fact, the rules here in Arizona around DRP, which authorizes a program like ours, doesn't allow a student to go into the program until they've been out of school for 30 days. So we're truly talking about students who can't or won't go to school for whatever reason that might be. So we're talking about solving the dropout issue. This is not a program for students who are sitting in your buildings. If they're sitting in your buildings or in one of your programs, we want them there. And quite frankly, if we get them back, engage in our program, get them caught up, we want them back. We hope they go back. And so, again, you're going to hear me reference this can't or won't. So what do? Number one, we take a list that you have going back 4 years. Obviously, they need to be under a certain age, so we look at their age. And we have a number of techniques, from looking at them on social media, from finding them in Fortnite if we have to, calls, texts, emails, trying to locate them. We use a lot of data opinion type of techniques, as well as just gumshoe detective work to try to find where they are. I like to call it find grandma, because if you find grandma, you find the kid. And so we do a lot of work around that to find the kid, and then offer them a program that allows them flexibility. One of the things that our policymakers, and sometimes even board members, not necessarily you, but some folks, don't realize that the majority of the people who drop out of high school did not drop out because of an academic issue. In fact, of the 30,000 students in our program, only 11% of them have failed a course within the last year and a half before entering our program. So why are they dropping out? Life issues. Young lady has a baby. Parents get sick. Parents are incarcerated. They themselves, as a student, have trouble with the law. On and on and on. The types of life issues that might happen to a student that's impeding them from being able to go to school for whatever reason it is. Sometimes, we hear stories like this all the time. The older sibling in particular is affected by this. One parent or both parents get sick, or something's happening with them, and that older sibling now has to go support the family and is all of a sudden forced to be the adult. And that student then is now working 1, 2 jobs. They don't have time to go to school. They're trying to survive. And so from a long-term perspective, can we provide a flexible program that allows a student like that to have an opportunity to go to school and manage all of the adult things they're all of a sudden having to face? And so what do we do for that? So I mentioned a little bit about the enrollment, trying to find them, all those types of things. Bring a tremendous amount of resources to that. My personal background is a marketing background, so we understand deeply how to find these kids and engage them and their parents. Then we need to offer them a flexible program. So first of all, that's why we decided to be an online didactic. I'm going to explain the support services, but let me talk a little bit about the online methodology. So we are not a computer-based training program. So when most people think about online, they think about a program that is nothing but it's automated and it's true, false questions, those types of things, multiple choice. That is not what we are. So while we have some of that, we also have fully licensed teachers in the curriculum. We're doing about 20 to 30% of the interactions. So there are papers, there are group activities, there are personal interactions between the teacher and the student with feedback. So for example, if a student writes a paper, they then are given feedback within 24 hours from the teacher, very specific feedback. So professional development we provide our teachers, because there's no, the student can't walk up and go, hey, Mr. Hennis, why is this good or why is this bad? We train our teachers to be very specific. So instead of saying, hey, this section was really good, we train our teachers to go, really interesting insight on the cause behind, why Japan decided to attack Pearl Harbor and the strategic benefits that they had and how it turned out to be a bad strategic decision, or whatever, right? Trying to give them really specific feedback on what it was they did. In math, a great example is we're proactive in math, so if our audience struggles with a particular subject, it's math. And so we have a teacher who overlays our other teachers, we call it a teacher mentor, but so in addition to providing professional development to our math teachers, she also looks for data and understands what's happening with the kids in the program. And if she sees, she sits right outside of my office, so I hear all the time. If she sees that a student is struggling on a particular concept, she actually proactively calls that student and says, hey, I see you're struggling on this concept, and starts to work through that with them. And so our teachers are very involved in the program. So that's the first difference between what most people think of online. We also provide a computer and internet access for every kid so that they can work anytime, anywhere, whether it's 2 o'clock, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They can work anytime. Now, we are asynchronous, but we are not self-paced. So another mistake we think most online programs make that we do not do is just do your work whenever. That doesn't work. Quite frankly, it doesn't work in higher ed, so there's a lot of data in higher ed, and there's an emerging amount of data in K-12, where when you just say there are no deadlines, it doesn't work. But if you say, hey, here's what's due this week, and I'm going to talk about some more support services here in a minute, students tend to respond to that. And so while, again, we're asynchronous, they can work anytime, anywhere, they have requirements to do the program, and they have things that have to be done every week, and if they don't do them, they get a 0. Now, we're compassionate. We should be compassionate if something's going on in the kid's life, and they come to us and say, hey, this is what happened, here's where I'm at, can I have an extension? And of course, we do that, but at the end of the day, there are requirements, and this is not a self-paced program because it won't work. And quite frankly, if you look at our outcomes, you'll see that's why we're far away above any other dropout recovery program I've ever seen. In fact, most states, their standard for graduation dropout recovery programs are 25%. Ours are all much, much over that in every program that we have. So next, support services. We have a role. One way you can think of it is we break the teacher role up into 3 separate roles. It's not a perfect analogy, but it's a good way to get your brain around. So the teacher is academic, focused on the class. I described that for you. Then there's a role we call an academic coach. That academic coach is a pace and progress person. So they are, the audience we're dealing with here who dropped out of school often do not have parental support, or if they do, the parent often has not graduated from high school. So they don't have the experience or the context to help the student. And so the academic coach is the parent in a lot of ways from an academic perspective. I have 2 freshmen in college this year that just graduated from high school. I guarantee you neither of them would have graduated high school without me kicking their butt every day and the mom kicking their butt every day. That is essentially what an academic coach is doing, aided by technology that matches the pacing that the student is seeing in terms of the requirements for a week. The academic coach is then going, hey, I saw you didn't log in yesterday, what's going on? Hey, I saw you were supposed to do these 3 things and you only did 2 of them. What's going on, right? So that pace and progress piece. The third piece is a local advocate. A local advocate will live here in the community. They will understand the services and things that are available to the student in this community, and they are primarily responsible for the social emotional welfare of the child. And so what they're doing is they're meeting up at a Dunkin' Donuts or a library, wherever is convenient here, typically outside of the district offices, because if a student is suspended or expelled or something like that, we can still serve them, but they can't come on the premises. Plus, we serve a lot of people that won't come on campus. They might have been bullied, they might have some sort of social anxiety issue, and so we have found that meeting off campus is more beneficial and we get more people to come. And so that local advocate is looking out for things like physical abuse, food insecurity, housing insecurity, things that are happening that are not creating stability in the student's life, and connecting them with the services that are available in the community. So I always like, I'm in Arizona right now, but the best example I can come up with off the top of my head is in Washington last winter. It was cold, negative 20 degrees. Student walks in, isn't wearing a coat. And local advocate, I can see her eyes light up and go, I wonder what's going on. Walks over to the student, engages them in a conversation. I position myself where I can hear, and it turns out the students had been evicted from their house, their apartment, and the landlord, against the law, had changed the locks and locked all their stuff, and for whatever reason, he didn't have a coat at the time, and so he didn't have a coat. And so that local advocate was able to connect them with the right advocates in order to remedy that situation. So those are the types of things that a local advocate are doing, because again, if a kid doesn't have a stable environment, they can't learn. And so they really are focused on creating that stable environment. And so there's 24/7 tutoring, the math teacher I talked about that's overlaid there. So it's high and heavy support with inside of a flexible program that allows the students to be able to learn when they can, but in a highly accountable environment and a highly supported environment. So that's the overview of the program. I'll pause for any questions.
I guess so. Obviously, you answered one of my questions, that there is an actual advocate that they interact, a physical person that they actually, intermix with or deal with, et cetera. So that person would be responsible, somewhat like a regular teacher. You mentioned physical abuse or anything like that, like a teacher would have to notify or contact them?
Correct. Yep.
But that's a voluntary thing? How often do they meet with them, or do they, is it a schedule thing, or, does a student have to meet with somebody, or not?
It's a great question. So the students find yes. Are we going to kick them out of the program if they don't show up? Probably not. It's going to be dependent on the student. But from a student's perspective, yes, it's required for them to meet once a week.
Okay. The other question I had was, since you just mentioned getting kicked out of the program, is there a certain parameters that if a student doesn't follow up and is meeting these expectations, et cetera, and you counsel them as far as they can go, then they are transitioned out of the program? Is that?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that question in a couple ways. Number one, there's actually a statutory authority and regulation on this in the DRP program. In what's called, it's not precisely stated like this in the statute, but the way we implemented it, I'll use those words. So a student has a ramp-up period of a month where they're not required to meet satisfactory academic progress. But then in the statute, they have to meet academic progress. The words are very fancy, and they basically say that a student has to be full-time if you divide it by the number of months in the program, which in our case is a year-round program. So what that adds up to is half the credit per month. And so essentially what happens is a student needs to clear satisfactory academic progress, which is half credit per month, in order to hit that clear status. If they don't hit that for 1 month, they go into warning status. Now, the student doesn't know this. This is behind the scenes. We're obviously counseling them, saying, hey, you need to do this. You've not met our expectations. They then go into probation status if they don't meet it for 2 months in a row. Now they know that they have an issue and that they need to do something, or else there's going to be an action taken. If they then go a third month, then they're no longer eligible for funding. So that's a funding statutory. The district could theoretically say, hey, we want to give somebody a chance, but then the state would no longer fund that student until they met satisfactory academic progress. And so our typical methodology is to drop them from the program after that third month of no satisfactory academic progress, and they would have to reapply to the program, get reapproved by the district, et cetera. Does that, I don't know if that completely answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. I guess the thing is, so you're being paid on a monthly basis for them, essentially kind of a minimum of 3 months?
So from a financial perspective, we work off of whether the state funds the district. So we are completely paid for performance. If the district is not reimbursed from a funding perspective, we don't charge the district. And so we're completely aligned with the funding mechanisms in Arizona on the DRP program. Yes, sir.
So your instructors have to have a lot of intervention experience with students?
The word intervention can be a tricky one that has lots of meanings. Can you give me an example of what you mean?
Well, I guess they have to be, I'm looking at them, be wise to students ditching out on students, telling them that they're not going to be there, or they're going to be there. The old games of.
Sure. Yeah, so that actually doesn't really fall on our teachers in our case, so we utilize the academic coach and the local advocate for those types of things, and yes, they're very wise to that.
What I'm getting at, I guess, how much experience does your staff have?
So some of them are very experienced. Obviously, we have to hire new people like anybody. Most of the people we hire in those roles are former teachers. A lot of them are social workers or case managers in the social environment. particularly the local advocate, a lot of times it's a social worker, not always, it could be a retired teacher, it could be a lot of things. A lot of times it'll actually be a current active teacher in the district that's doing that part-time, because most local meetups are in the evening. And so we have a lot of experienced folks in that. The academic coach sometimes can be more people who come from industry, but even they tend to be mostly former teachers and such.
I guess one other question is, there's a lot of extremely, I mean, you're dealing with children, extremely sensitive and private information. And safeguarding, their safety, and you have the ability, obviously, to protect all that and all of that information. I was trying to read some of what your, I can't remember what it was, but it was your confidential information paragraph in there, and about who's responsible for the information, and who has the third party that's available for information and stuff like that.
Yeah, so a lot of that's FERPA compliance language, and so we're completely FERPA compliant. We do the FERPA training just like the school district would be required to do a FERPA training. And so we would trigger the clause in the FERPA, so what you're talking about, the third party, so we would be treated like a contractor, just like if you had a contractor come who ran your student information system. And so they then have an educational need to know certain and have access to certain data. We would trigger those same clauses. Now, obviously, all of our folks have to be trained and understand how to treat that information, how to ask the question. If someone calls in asking for information, they need to verify who that person is if they're a parent. If the student turns 18, right, for example, which we deal with a lot, then they have to know, the student has to give the parent permission to do that. I would say, quite frankly, we're probably better at that than most school districts. My son turned 18 in the school district, didn't say one thing about me calling in. We actually are probably bigger on that because we also have adult programs, and so we are very, compliant with FERPA.
The ultimate goal would be to have, if a student was needing credits, or if they were in a suspension part where they had X number of months, the ultimate goal would be to, if they don't graduate through your program, to transition them back into the main campuses, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you're not essentially capturing them and taking the ED for them for the balance of the year?
Yeah, so our philosophy is if a student can or will go back to school, they should go back to school. And so we don't want to keep them in the program. Now, you might have an exception there. Someone's, credit or half a credit in, and they go, well, I want to go. It may not be the right decision. Then we have a conversation with the district and the counselors here to try to help make the best decision for the kid. But in most situations, you want the kid back in the building. That is where they should be. We're a catch-all for students who can't or won't go to school. And again, statutorily here in Arizona, they have to be out for 30 days before they're allowed into a DRP program.
Yeah, you hate to ask the question, but you're in it to make money.
We're a for-profit
you're
company,
not
yes, sir. Yes, sir, we are.
just doing it out of the goodness, a lot of the goodness of your heart, but you're here to make money also.
That's a great question. So we are a for-profit company. There's no doubt about that. We're not ashamed of that. Profit is a powerful motivator in our opinion. But we also, our outcomes speak for ourselves. And so we go from 0% graduation. Let's be honest. If someone's been out for 30 days, the likelihood of them graduating from the district is just about 0.
Sure.
And then I'm going to read them because I don't ever want to make a mistake. But then you look at our outcomes. If someone comes in as a senior, a 67% success rate, so you're talking from 0 to 67. If they come in as a junior, a 41% success rate, again, 0 to 41%, and a sophomore is 38%, again, 0 to 38%. Let's give it 1%, let's say 1% of those folks. So those are huge movements and gains, and so, and again, when we benchmark that against other dropout recovery programs, and if you look around the country, and you look at the alternative guidelines in terms of graduation rates for dropout recovery programs in states that have them, they tend to be about 25%. We far exceed that.
Okay. And there's a hand, just my last question, and we obviously appreciate you being here and appreciate the work that you're accomplishing and bringing. The number one thing is getting kids out into finishing school in a safe and environment. So, and I just went out of my brain.
No problem. That happens to me like 6 times a day, so.
I would like, I know, Chuck, we've talked about this a little bit, can you explain, because you are for-profit,
Right.
but also because you're educating our students, and I had to apply with the state to even be able to enter into a partnership. Can you talk about the ADM that comes into the district, how you were compensated, and how that all works?
Before you leave that real quick, my question was, how many other districts in the state are using you guys?
So Arizona right now, there are two, so we're
Okay.
fairly new. So one of the strategic issues that the legislature addressed about 2 years ago that affected all of you guys, so you'll know, is that all of the ADM came in arrears. And it was very difficult for districts to try to put a program like this when they weren't gonna get paid for a year to upfront that. We weren't in a financial position. We actually, in some states now, we're in a financial position where we can actually front some of that for districts, but we weren't at the time, so we didn't do a lot of work in Arizona because of that issue. There was one superintendent who came down for Washington, where we have a tremendous amount of school districts, about 90, who moved down here and had brought us in. We've worked with them for a number of years because of that relationship. And then there are now a few others that are starting that. From an ADM perspective, so again, the DRP is a specific funding source that's passed by the legislature, the Dropout Recovery Program. And essentially the way it works is it divides the ADM into 1/12. And every time I mention satisfactory academic progress, every time a student meets satisfactory academic progress, that triggers 1/12 of the funding. So we're a completely paid for performance program, which to your question earlier about, at the end of the day, we've aligned with the interest of both you and the student. And that is to create satisfactory academic progress or we don't get paid. So yes, we are for profit, and we have, because we understand how for profit is and we understand how results are, we aligned ourselves with how, the incentive that you're trying to get. So we've aligned our profit with that. I think that makes sense.
You looking for the specific numbers?
I just the basic.
Because even at the lowest case, it's more than cost neutral, based on the numbers that Steve and I talked about, we cost positive, not that that's why you'd be doing it,
No, and that,
So essentially, we leave money in the district for administration purposes, because there is some district administration.
sure. And the DRP program is a state funded program by our fabulous state legislature and governor.
in that,
And so there's no sudden heartburn from those guys and money doesn't get funded, that's not gonna
And
be
even if it is, our money is linked to yours, so if you don't get paid, we don't.
sunsetted or anything else like that.
Not that I'm aware of it, it's all
I mean,
approved and.
Ducey hasn't been the best friend to education, so.
Well, but like I said, I had to, before I could even enter, we could even bring this to you, I had to apply with the state, with ADE, to even get approval for our district to be able to do this, because of that.
Yeah, and again, contractually, I don't remember the clause number, but if you look at it, we're waiting to you, so if you don't get paid, we don't get paid.
Okay.
So,
So we've already made a motion, et cetera.
and again,
Where are you located?
So our headquarters in Salt Lake City.
Will you have a local headquarters somewhere, or will you be here locally
I'm here.
somewhere?
Chuck's
and there's a program manager here, and you'll have your local advocate who's literally,
Here as
in Casa Grande.
in Casa Grande?
Yeah.
Okay, so there'll be other people with you?
correct, I have a program manager who's gonna be working very closely with Steve and the team, and we'll have the, local advocate will be a community person.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
That's really a big part of the secret
Yeah,
sauce,
that's
is that
huge.
caring adult.
Actual physical contact, right?
Yeah, that caring adult, and I've seen it live, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
So one of the things, that when we talked a little bit about, I looked at potentially starting an alternative program. Then after I was introduced to them and listened to this, I wanted to present it to you, because in my mind, this doesn't cost us anything to enter into. The risk is minimal, because like I said, as far as that goes, well, if we started our own program, you have to get enough kids, and you have to have enough ADMs, you can hire a teacher, you gotta get the even if we use Edgenuity, you gotta buy the licenses for the kids that are using it. So there's a lot of cost that goes into trying to do it yourself. So, and again, our contract is for this school year, and at the end of the year, if we're not happy, we don't sign again. If we're happy, we can do
Send in
the
the same,
change.
you'll send in the same information.
Right, so it's,
And quite frankly, you have the right to approve anything you want. So if for some reason you became happy before that, just don't approve a student who's in the program. It really is not, we make it very easy, because our results speak for themselves. We don't lose very many clients because we do a good job, and, we're not here to try to trap you or gotcha. We're not us, it's all based on our performance.
And as you're searching for kids, if you identify kids that have left our district, but are now enrolled elsewhere, you report that back to us, so we can now take them off of our books, because those kids hurt us as far as our graduation rate and all of that. And if they do graduate, they are allowed then, that you give them back to the district, and they can come back to their home school, participate in graduation?
I would state it separately, because this is a district program.
Okay.
So they never leave the district.
Okay, so
We
this
we
is a
are a
district
district program.
It's your diploma, and
Yeah.
we do have some kids that'll do the cap and gown, and that's the.
I would say the vast majority of them do, actually. Now, they're graduating all throughout the year, so some of them don't want to wait.
Right, but if they wanna wait till May and walk in formal graduation, they
They're
can.
your diploma.
That's,
I should mention
that's
the,
important to me.
As kids are dropping out during the year in this 30 days, the conversion rate in those kids is incredibly high, that they'll come into the program, like 80%. The cold case list, a little bit more tricky.
So,
Finding those kids is hard.
So, yeah.
I just want to touch on what we talked about earlier. You said that some other districts have their own programs, they have to hire their own assistant people, whatever. What is their rate of success compared to with this program?
Well, what I was speaking to is a bigger district like, let's say, Paradise Valley. I think Scottsdale, a lot of those districts, they start their own alternative school within their own district because they're big, large districts. And rather than, when kids get in trouble or not doing well, rather than lose them, they put them in their own school so they retain that ADM and they retain them right there.
And we used to have it.
And that's how Desert Winds came to
Right
be
here.
originally.
But the interesting thing about that is the kids don't go to the school.
Yeah.
So Scottsdale just did an RFP. I mean,
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. on
otherwise they
that.
would just go to your school.
So we're not a competitor, so if you decide to start an alternative program, quite frankly, most of the high schools we work with, the districts we work with, have multiple alternative programs. I give an example up from Washington, Federal Way, tough school district, and they have 8 alternative programs. We are the 9th one. And so we are the catch-all of students who you cannot find or cannot get into a program that you're running. So even if you down the road decide to start an alternative program, our program would still fit in the sense that if people don't come in and you still have a listing, you're not gonna hit everybody. I'm not aware of a district who gets every district or every student through. I don't think there's a district that exists, maybe there's one. But we become that catch-all that they'll find them, try to get them engaged.
yeah, it's a 1-year contract?
Yeah.
I'll go ahead. We've already have a motion that's on the table, correct?
Yeah, unless anybody else, does anybody else have any more questions? Because they're here and I want to make sure.
I just have a comment, and I think it's great that we're gonna actually give the kids an opportunity that haven't been able to have one here in a long time. Because that was some of the most rewarding things when we saw those kids that had kids and just.
I was on the board when we started Desert Winds, and, the idea of what it wanted to accomplish, et cetera, was, was a good idea. I think we've come a long ways, instead of what you guys have the ability to do.
It's the flexibility.
Well, and that's for me, before we take on now trying to start another alternative school of any kind ourselves, I'd like to see where this could take us, and then it doesn't mean that we don't still do that down the road.
This is in the meantime.
Yeah.
So, call for the question?
Mr. Hennis.
Aye.
Mrs. Dolzall.
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes,
Mr. Lopez.
Yes.
And Ms. Hawkins.
Yes.
thank you, gentlemen.
I'll send you some photos. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, item number D is donations. This is always good. Move to accept the following donations: $840 from SciTech Institute to Cash Grand Union High School STEM Advisory Council, $500 from American Legion to Cash Grand Wrestling Club, $200 from American Legion to Vista Grande Baseball, $1,000 from the Thunderbirds Foundation to Vista Grande Boys Golf Club, $10,000 sponsorship from Nissan to Cash Grand's First Robotics Club.
How many years has that been going on?
I can text my wife. if you
No, I know,
want.
but it's been going on for quite some
15
time.
or more,
15, yeah.
probably
I was gonna say.
18, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's amazing, that's awesome.
Since Chris Murray,
I tried to get it for ag, but
You need to ask Carter.
And $500 from James Shapiro to Cash Brand Special Needs.
That's awesome. Thank you to all of them.
Yeah, Yes, thank you very much. Any more discussion?
We have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Aye.
Mr. Hennis?
Aye.
Mrs. Dolzall?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Ms. Hawkins?
Yes. Number E, informational reports. Move to approve to accept the following board information reports as presented.
I so move.
Discussion?
Mr. Hennis?
Aye.
Mrs. Dolzall?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
And Ms. Hawkins?
Yes. Number 7, the consent agenda. We have A through I. Does anybody want anything removed from the consent agenda?
I move we accept the consent agenda in total.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Mr. Hennis?
Aye.
Mrs. Dolzall?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
And Ms. Hawkins?
Yes. Okay. Number 8, informational only items. Review the board policy KJGA.
That's just a requirement by impact aid that we do. So it's just informational, just look at it, there's no changes, it's just that we have to say that the board looked at it. So,
Number 9, board items, future agenda items.
I think we ought to look into increasing board pay.
Good one.
We gotta pay more to be on here?
You one of the things I will mention, and Member Dole's already mentioned, we do expect our grades and our scores to be unembargoed at some point in time now that it is October 1st. So I will have on the agenda for the November meeting, Melanie will do a report on our scores and our letter grades. We should know all of that in the next little bit. But even before the report, once they are unembargoed and I can share them, I will gladly share them with you.
Also, the AFR should be ready to go
Yes.
by,
I don't know where Gina is.
we're looking at the 7th because, following week is fall break, so would it be okay if, even if it's telephonic, it would be just to approve the AFR, the annual financial report, which is the recap of all the expenditures from last year.
We had it on the agenda for tonight, but they're still making changes and audits and everything else, so it was incomplete, so we need to make sure it's complete before we present it.
And the deadline to have it done is the 15th, so.
Okay.
So I will let you know what time and everything, and I'll email you, and then whether you can come in person or telephone.
Monday the
7th?
7th.
Monday.
Monday the 7th.
Yeah, next Monday.
Okay. Number 10.
I move to adjourn.
You're
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.